Hello and welcome to Cricket 360. We are here to talk about the ongoing Test series. Obviously, the first Test match at Mohali, was hyped up for the obvious reason, VK at 100. But before that, a quick plug-in about lots of cricket going on around the world. Obviously Pakistan's playing Australia. And again, before we start the show, I think there's probably no cricket fan out there who's not completely shattered with the news of not just Rodney Marsh, but the untimely death of the spin wizard, the ever enchanting showman Shane Warne. Deep condolences to everyone, from his family, the cricketing fraternity around the world. I mean, what a champion he was. So our thoughts towards Shane Warne and Rod Marsh and their respective families. Obviously, the women's cricket, India, Pakistan, the match is going on for people in India and elsewhere who probably are not attuned to the time zone. India had a pretty good start. Smriti, Deepthi had a very good partnership, but then a pretty difficult collapse, 5 for 18. But thankfully, thanks to Sneh Rana and Pooja Vastrikar, India has kind of revived its hopes. Probably will end up around 240 odd, will be competitive. We'll talk about all that and more. But for this session, we're going to be talking about the first Test match. As always, I have Joydeep Dutt today. Of course, he's as sharp as ever in his suit. He's commentating the Ranji game. Joydeep Dutt, welcome to the show. Maybe give us a quick preview of the Ranji match that you're commentating, and then we'll get straight to the Test match.
Good morning, Pratik. Thanks for that. Yeah, first we're going to start with Rodney Marsh and Shane Warne, because Rodney Marsh, yes, one of the greatest legends, also 72, no age to go. But look at Shane Warne. There are cricketers that come and go, and then some that leave a legacy behind. He was the original rock star. Whether he was batting, whether he was fielding, whether he was bowling, whether he was just in the slips chirping to the batters, there's something about him. There's his captains have spoken to some people who played under him at Rajasthan Royals the first season of the Indian Premier League, and he said they're in love with him. They haven't met him in the last 10 years, but they're in love with him. That's the sort of impact he leaves behind. He's an enigma of sort, and he's the sort of person that fills seats in the stadium. There are many people who come and score runs and take wickets and do the needful. But when you talk about flair, when you talk about just class oozing, can do anything, can bowl balls, can hit shots that nobody else can. They're often that's about the same with Brian Lara as well. Why does everybody say Brian Lara and Tendulkar? Because those guys can do what very few people can do. Runs, everybody can score. There are a lot of greats who score runs, but how they score those runs, it's what show they put on. Just like you go and watch a nice musical, or you go and watch a good theater or a play, it's similar. It's the visual pleasure of scoring the runs. Yes, in theaters and plays, there's no score on it, there are no marks on it, so you can't say I was 112 not out overnight. But as far as these guys are concerned, there is a mark. So there could be other guy batting at the other end 150, but you could talk about that 112 from Lara, or a 4 wickets from Shane Warne, where somebody else has maybe taken 6. It's the class of the man, and he just oozed class. Yeah. So just I had to say that. Yeah, I think this is Gujarat versus Meghalaya. Obviously, not an even Steven game. Meghalaya just in the big league for the first time. They've been a first-class cricket for 3-4 years, but they've been playing in the tier lower. Right now they've obviously done well. It's building blocks for them. But having said that, this same team has beaten Mumbai in a T20 match at the Wankhede Stadium with Shreyas Iyer and Surya Kumar Yadav and Shardul Thakur in the 11. They lost a few games after that. But it's these wins, these building blocks, that ultimately help you to get across the line. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over season, but it's definitely going to happen. That's for sure. So Gujarat batted first, got 555. They got skittled out in the first inning. In the second innings, the pros came. Ravi Teja got 133. Bish again got a 60. So they are about 238 for 5 now. So there's a fight, and this is how it starts. This is how it all starts. And then ultimately, as you play, you get better. And one day, my favorite story on this is Sri Lanka and Bangladesh were like this one day. Sri Lanka has won 2 World Cups, and they won a World Cup before England did. So you follow the process, things will fall in place.
Absolutely. Thank you for those anecdotes and, your thoughts on Rod Marsh and Warne. Absolutely. Absolute legends, rock stars. They probably lived life. It's larger than life characters, and their impact goes beyond cricket. Talking about, lopsided opponents, probably the theme continues in the Test match that we are witnessing. Let's quickly talk about the batting. Obviously, was good to see that, Mayank was back on the top. Mayank and Rohit had a decent start. But personally, I was quite impressed with the fact that Hanuma was come in place of Pujara. I mean, every time the man gets a chance, he's making some sort of impact. It's not 100, but that 58 of at 45 odd strike rate was was helped India kind of he kind of helped India. The other batsmen kind of played around him, but I would love to get your thoughts on Rishabh and Hanuma before, of course, we talk about the legendary Jadeja and his 175. What are your thoughts on the way Hanuma and Pant played? They both played just the way they're known for. Hanuma laid the foundation, and Pant went about his business at a near strike rate of 100. And I understand that this is his fifth score of 90, so he may not have crossed the hundreds. I mean, he's already crossed the hundreds in overseas conditions, match-winning conditions, but to have five scores of 90, yes, certain school of thought would say he should have got his 100, but even that doesn't take much away from this little young keeper of ours.
Yeah, you must be really liking him because you call him little. I can't see any little in him. He's a big boy. Yeah, but
He's a big boy, Pant.
yeah, he's a big boy Pant. Okay, so you and I were having this chat when there was a talk of Pujara and Rahane missing out. You asked me this question: who do you think is your number three? And I thought Hanuma Vihari is the ideal number three, even ahead of Shubman Gill, in my humble opinion. The reason is that you want stability at three. You want somebody who's rock solid. Number three is the backbone of every test team. If you look at the world over in the history, look at the threes, Rahul Dravid. You look at the threes, somebody like a Michael Vaughan or a Joe Root, Ian Bell initially when he started. You come to Australia, Ricky Ponting. He didn't do badly for too badly for himself. So when you talk about a number three, it's a very, very vital position. You got to play the aggressor, but more often than not, you have to be able to be solid and sort of look after the middle order. One of the great things that Rahul did was made sure that Tendulkar, Lakshman, Ganguly, and Dhoni did not get exposed to the new ball in the 17th over or in the 12th over. That was a job he did, and very quietly he did it. Not everybody talks about his runs and average and the number of balls he played. The number of balls he played is directly linked to the number of runs that the Tendulkars and Gangulys and Lakshmans have got, because they've made their life easier, because that's his job profile. So that was his job. So as a number three, seeing the strengths and weaknesses of all the batters that play in the Indian team, I felt of all the people who were in the squad, Hanuma Vihari is the guy who's best equipped to bat at three. And again, at five, you just want somebody like Shreyas Iyer to bat, or six in this case. And about Rishabh Pant, when his career is over, he'll be telling his children, I wish I wasn't such a big cowboy. He really will. I've met a few Indian players who say they've missed out on hundreds, been 90s, 80 not out, 90 not out with the number 11. And that has happened because of lack of partners. I can understand that. If you've got number 11 batting with you who's a bit of a mug with the bat, then you try to hit the couple of boundaries and you perish in the manner. So that also you're throwing it away, but there's a reason behind throwing it away. In this case, he's just throwing it away for being the thrill of it. But when his career finishes and his test hundreds will be 13 and not 19, or 19 and not 25, or 25 and not 33, that's when he'll feel it to the bone. But we all live and learn, I suppose.
Absolutely well said, and I hope it's 25 and 31 and hopefully more, because it's just the sheer pleasure of watching just the potential he has, and I'm really hoping that with time, as you rightly said, hopefully that thrill element goes down. There's a bit more, but I suppose that's the magic of Pant. There is the thrill element. He's not our Hanuma Vihari. But let's talk about Jadeja, the man who obviously
Yeah,
has yeah.
just on that. The only reason 25 and 33 or 33 and 39 will all depend on how many test matches he plays. As days are going by, we are playing less and lesser number of test matches. So Alistair Cook actually played probably 10 years less than Sachin Tendulkar, and played what? Almost as many test matches or close to it to Tendulkar's. If Tendulkar had played in England, he would have probably played 250, 270 test matches, because England played a lot of test matches. They play a lot of emphasis. They lay a lot of emphasis on test matches. They have two different teams, white ball, red ball, so they can play in tandem need be. They've got enough players with 19 counties being there. So Rishabh will also, realize that these runs. He is an entertainer. I mean, he is a person who will. hit that last ball for six of the day's play. Virendra Sehwag telling Saqlain Mushtaq, I will hit you for six and get to 100, and doing it at 194 and doing it at 297 again. So these are guys who are special. But can you imagine Virendra Sehwag? I mean, I shudder to think. Virendra Sehwag telling Saqlain Mushtaq, I'm on 97 and I'm going to hit you for a six and get to 100. And it happens.
Yeah.
He reaches 195 and it happens again. And he reaches 297 and it happens again. And Saqlain Mushtaq is one of the best that has ever been as an off spinner. To be able to do that just goes to show at which level Virendra Sehwag was. So same with Pant, he will also learn. I think Rishabh Pant and Virendra Sehwag are cut from the same cloth. I think with playing more, I think Rishabh is younger than Sehwag was when he was playing for India. So a little bit of maturity will also come. He'll still hit those sixes. I think his choosing of his dishes will be a little better.
Yeah, and it's not just the sixes. He's made the one-handed six pretty much the new thing in Indian cricket. I mean, I see
but
young
that
kids.
one-handed, but that one-handed, the one-handed is a bit of a, he's sort of dummy over there. So he hits the shot and finishes with one hand. He could let the bat go. He could let the bat go also. That could be the next thing coming. Once you've hit the shot and you follow through, you can do a lot of things. You can let the bat go. It looks one-handed, but every time you see the replay, just keep an eye on the fact that when he's hitting the ball, he's got both hands on it. And one of the advantages he also has is that the left-handers do. If you're a natural right-hander, which is in the case of a Saurav, or the opposite, which is in the case of a Tendulkar, who's a natural left-hander, if your top hand in batting is your stronger hand, then you tend to be a big hitter of the ball. So I am a right-hander and I bat right-handed. So my top hand is my left hand. So it's my weaker hand, which is my dominant hand over here. In cricket, it's the top hand that does most of the work. So if your top hand is your stronger hand, then you tend to be a big hitter of the ball. That's the case with a lot of the people. Tendulkar, Brian Lara, Saurav Ganguly, Rishabh Pant, a lot of these people. So they are basically right-handers, so there's a lot of strength in the right hand. And when they hit the drive or the lofted shot, it's 80% the top hand, which is the right hand in the case of Pant. So he, as it is, has a lot of strength in that hand. And it's his weaker hand, which is the supporting role. But in normal cases, it's the weaker hand that is the dominant force, and it's the dominant hand that's playing the supporting role.
That's some wonderful insight on the top and bottom hand, and especially these anomalies where probably these guys are blessed with fairly strong both arms. And let's talk about the man who uses his arm to celebrate with that sword-like celebration that he has. Pointed question: do you think in today's Test cricket arena, Jadeja is the best all-rounder out there? 175. The Sri Lankans have not been able to get him out in the whole series. Ever since he's back from injury, bat, ball, fielding, he seems to be doing it all. You think he's right up there amongst the best all-rounders the world cricket is seeing at this moment?
Yeah, right up there. I wouldn't call him the best yet. I mean, Ben Stokes and Shakib Al Hasan wouldn't be too happy with calling him the best, because I think he has to have this sort of form when he goes outside the subcontinent. He has to get 175 against England at Lord's. He has to get 163 against Australia at Melbourne. He has to get 157 not out at Cape Town versus South Africa. He has to get 191 versus New Zealand at Auckland. That's where he will be up there with the best. There's no doubt about it that he's already up there with the best, pardon me, but he will be the best. Because first you get to that league, and there's a little bit of a contest going on there as well. First you graduate to that class, and you go and say, there are a couple of guys here, not too bad, so I got some competition here. So that's what I'm talking about. If he needs to be the best among these guys, then he's got to do these outside the subcontinent, which me, in my humble opinion, feel that he will. It's just a matter of time. He needs to play more. He needs to bat higher up. Sometimes when you bat 7, 8, you end up batting with Ashwin, and Ashwin goes, then you've got Sami and Bumrah, and we tend to have a long tail, which is often the case, which is the reason why Shardul Thakur has come into the fray in the first place, to make our tail a little bit shorter. So as he bats earlier, it will be better for him. But yeah, it's about time that he bats a position or two earlier than he's been all his life.
That's right. And so, talking about Jadeja, I mean, Another question that popped my head, like, were you surprised about the declaration when he was at 175? Did it remind you of the famous or the infamous 194? Or, Rohit had a plan that those many runs are enough, and hence the declaration came in?
Yeah, they had a run in mind. They gave him some time. You get to 175, fine. If you were 190, we think about it. 175 is a fair bit away from a 200A. Apparently, Jadeja, I read somewhere, Jadeja went and said, we've got enough runs, let's declare and bowl at them. This goes to show what a team man he is. And there's always a plan in place. So you tell yourself, okay, we're going to bat till 4 o'clock and put them in at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to give you a free hand. I'm telling you this at 3 o'clock. So I've given you an hour to get as many runs as you can. You go about it the way you want to. And going about the way you want to, because there's some good bowling happening and whatever. So defensive bowling happening. So you get to 4 o'clock and it's 175. And we say, yeah, I'm okay with that. I knew the plan and I'm okay with 175. The team come
All
before
right,
everybody.
No, very professional and good to hear that, Jadeja.
194. Yeah, 194 is a different ballgame. You're a hit away. 175 is not.
Fair enough, and fairly professional to hear that Jadeja, it was his prerogative. One last question before before we kind of move on with our Sunday and go and watch some cricket, both the women's and the men, is, Sri Lanka is at about 140 for 4, long way to go. Ashwin's bowling pretty well. All the Indian bowlers bowling, looking pretty decent at this juncture. Sri Lanka's control in terms of batting hasn't been that great. Do you reckon that this is going to, go in the direction of a potential follow-on? If India chooses, what are your thoughts on how is this day going to pan out today?
I think so. The best thing that India does is that when they don't pick up wickets, they don't give runs. That's one of the hallmark of a good team. So the runs don't increase. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this game is about scoring runs. When you return home after a game of cricket, everybody asks you how many runs you scored. Nobody asks you how many balls you played. So what will happen is when India gets wickets, they get wickets. When they don't get wickets, they stifle up the runs, which is why the game never gets out of hand. And all the good teams in first-class cricket and Test cricket go back to the Australia in the 90s and 2000s, go to the West Indies before that. There'd be a spell, there'd be a 14-over spell, then they were leaked 17 runs, and they picked up a wicket. So the game is still in control with the Roberts, the Garner, the Croft, the Holdings bowling. 14 overs, 21 runs. Suddenly one guy gets a wicket, another guy, the new batter in, you get wickets in a cluster. So in 21 overs, you've given 30 runs and picked up 3 wickets. So that 14 overs, 21 runs is hidden in that whole scenario because you picked up 3 in the next 7 because you didn't give the runs. But in 14 overs, if you had given 52, then the score from 150 would look 200. So that's the reason what India will do. What they will do is they'll stifle up the runs and the wickets will come. They know it's pressure. They know they're feeling it. India's batted long and big in the game and they don't want to bat again. So stifling up the runs is one way of saying that we're not looking to bat again and we are going to be pounding you every ball. If you're not getting a wicket, we're not giving anything away. And it's just a question of time before you will ultimately succumb. That will be the plan for India.
Seems the case, except Jadeja, everyone's kind of giving only about 2.5 runs and over. Sri Lanka and Nisanka are good batsmen there. Nisanka looks fairly settled, close to a 50. Let's see what the Sri Lankans can come up with. But, I too feel that, this is they probably get bundled out by 250, 275 at most. And then it's India's call. Most likely there could be a follow-on. But hopefully there's some good competitive cricket. But I'm going to be juggling between this game and the Pakistani innings, the women's cricket in New Zealand, because Pakistan will have to score their highest ever if they have to win their first ever World Cup win against the Indian women. This is going to be good contests so far. We've had a fabulous Women's World Cup so far. Hopefully you guys watched the West Indies game where they won it in the last over. So please give your due attention to both formats of the game. And Joydipda, I'll catch you later in the evening, if not tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.